I'm just starting it. It's gonna be what it
begun.
is. It's gonna be what it is.
Welcome.
Am I going?
Yeah. It's
We
less
should
awkward
really
that way.
edit these.
No, because it's more fun if we don't.
Okay.
This could be the 10th time we've tried to do this and you wouldn't know.
It's only the first. There's not going to be no 10th time. It's 9:40.
Correct. So,
all right, I'll start.
Apologies.
You can't sit way back there, though.
First of all, apologies. We missed last week and it was Memorial Day and we had a lot going on. So, no support or help for anybody else because we had Memorial Day. And we're not narcissistic at all.
Okay, so this week is actually, I don't know, this one makes me nervous, but I want to, stop with my big hands, but I want to talk about it because I think it's something that's not talked about. So we're going to talk about in our families or whoever we live with, roommates, whatever, it tends to be, just because of nature of life, that there's always at least one person in the family that has something that's physically challenging or mentally challenging, that's kind of a struggle that's always there. And so this came up for us this past week. Wasn't this past week, it was 2 weeks ago. I was thinking about doing this video because Dan was out of town for work and I have endometriosis and I have it really, really bad. And if you're uncomfortable talking about those things, turn this video off right now.
Too bad. No, don't.
So,
exposure therapy. Stay tuned.
Exposure therapy. So Dan knew I had endometriosis when we got married because I served a mission for our church and so did Dan, and he was around me when I was diagnosed. And I had 7 babies in 8 years and it wasn't that bad. And then the past year has just been ridiculous. And then you add that with an injury that I've had, and sometimes my body just doesn't want to work. And sometimes it gets really scary. And for me, as the person who has the problem physically, I get annoyed because I don't want to be the one that needs that attention or that care or that taken care of. And I don't want to let other people help me. But as things kind of progressively get worse, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it, it's that, how do you handle in a family not becoming the victim of the family because you have a physical ailment or a disease or an autoimmune thing or a mental health thing, but also how does the rest of the family get their needs met? For us, thankfully, it's once a month. And during that time, it's just really bad. But then, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's not to change the different things we talk about for different situations, but this really came up to our minds. We notice more and more you think about it, and yeah, like, look, I think, I don't know that there's a family out there that doesn't have something on their plate for at least someone in the family. And this, at some point, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it, and just considering how that affects everybody else in the family. We could go into family roles and talking about how that kind of works. But I think overall what came to my mind when we were talking about this, and as we've just kind of learned through the last, it's even been married for 11, but through the last 12, 13 years, that it creates so many problems for the family if you can't talk about those things that are the biggest, major concerns. So just in psychological assessment kind of stuff, sometimes you'll consider factors for challenges as static factors and dynamic factors. Static factors it's always there, it stays the same. Dynamic factors, change. Sorry.
You're fine.
Talking with my hands again. And not as concerned about dynamic stuff. That's the stuff that, it's maybe a one time, it's here, it's there. The static stuff are the things that don't change. They're going to be there. So we talked about this. It's one of those fun times. For example, I come home, pull up the computer, and it has, how to deal with your spouse with ADHD.
I don't have ADHD.
No, she does not.
Someone in this relationship does.
And so, there's multiple things we could talk about.
I was doing research.
We won the lottery on those static factors. But there's certain things that, I have to learn to live with or deal with as an adult with, ADHD and inability to be on time to anything. But I just use that as an excuse. But even for Michelle, when you talk about that, like that, how serious that can be for several days out of a month, and yeah, medical stuff and all kinds of different things you can look at, but that's I mean it's going to be there no matter what.
Well, I get uncomfortable with it because I don't want anybody to know. First of all, it's not something you talk about. Second of all, I will fight to, like, my favorite movie is Rocky IV. And so I am like, nope, gonna be fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And so I had the situation. Dan was gone, and it got really, really bad. And I knew that my iron levels were tanking. I knew I was in a bad spot, and the pain was really, really bad. But while all of this is happening, and I'm home alone with 4 kids, I'm like texting 3 friends at the same time who would totally come over, drop everything, and help me. Yeah. And I'm texting 3 friends, and I'm like, yep, everything's fine. Everything's good. How's your day? How can I help you? What do you need? Yeah. And not even letting them know. And then I knew I needed some iron because of how I was feeling. I know when it's getting bad. So we have a friend that has supplements, and he came by with his daughter and dropped off some iron. And I know their family totally would have come in, put our kids to bed, taken care of everything. Your family would have come help. But instead, I chose to do it on my own and not accept help. And then the next morning I got up and I'm like, I'm going to prove that I'm fine. And I weeded our entire yard and mowed everything for like 4 hours outside. And that's totally how I deal with it, of it's fine, everything's fine, I'm not going to let anybody help me, and I'm not going to deal. Because I think there's some guilt when you're the person that has the thing that's affecting the family. You don't want the family, you're very loving, very kind. We have awesome friends, we have good family, but you don't want to be the person that's like, hey, I need help. Especially when it's, I need help repeatedly. Like, it's not like, oh, I need to take a nap today. It's like, no, for this week out of the month, I'm going to be useless.
Well, and that's different. And the only thing I change is right, you mentioned the guilt part, but I'd even change it into the shame piece, because it is where you feel like it's not something that's right. You feel like it's something about you, and it's something that always happens, and it's a problem you bring to everyone, and just wish you could.
And I think in general, some people feel that way. What if you have a mental health thing and nobody can see my endometriosis? I'm very good at hiding it. Yeah. Nobody knows I'm in pain unless you've been friends with me for a long time. You know when I'm in a lot of pain, but most people can't tell, and I don't tell them. And I think that's the same thing with mental health stuff. You could be really struggling with depression or anxiety or all of these things, and nobody knows. And you don't talk about it, and you don't ask for help, and it can get really, really bad. I don't struggle with the mental health stuff. I struggle with the physical stuff. But watching even this pandemic go on, I wonder how many people are struggling and not asking for help for fear of judgment, for fear of shame, for fear of all of these things. And then also not wanting to become a burden to the people in their household or to their friends and family, who I'm sure most of the time, hopefully, would be willing to help. But how do you get the help that you need, and how do supporters of somebody who's going through that in a static thing that's always going to be there, how do they have their needs met as well?
Well, and there's a couple of really important, first step sort of things, and it can depend obviously on the situation, but there's a piece to that. And just as we talk about shame, and if it's something that's very static, and it's there, even if it's off and on, but still, like in this case, still very consistent, that there is a little bit of, dare I say, even almost a grief process of something like accepting, of trying to get through to, whether it's even people in the family. Like, it's so easy, and we see this in many cases, people in the family can pretend it's not there. People who have it can pretend it's not there, and that's not helpful. So part of that is even just the acceptance and
sorry,
go ahead, jump in.
But I love the acceptance part, because that is something that I've been struggling with. Mm-hmm. Because in my sorry.
Oh, so
sorry.
I'm the victim.
But I love the acceptance part, because in my perfect world, I wouldn't have this. And even though it's that 1 week of the month, it causes other problems with my body other times. Like, my perfect world, I have a fitness class that I love, and I would teach it. I'd get certified, I would teach it, I love it. And it's just not, like, the more and more I look any way around, I try to get around it, it's not a reality to do something like that.
At least maybe not right now.
Not right now. But,
still.
So there's some acceptance things of, I had to accept that we needed to have kids right away because they didn't know if I could have kids. So that meant I stopped going to school because we were having babies really fast and close together because we were trying to get them here before it got really bad. And so our life plan, when you have an autoimmune disease or depression, or all these things that you struggle with, maybe ADHD, whatever it is, your life plan changes. It just does.
Yeah.
And so it's accepting the new life plan in a way that is...
Yeah. And that's part of why again, there's a sensitivity, there's a time and there's a place and there's a way to talk about these things. That's probably a different day and such. But there's a piece to this, and obviously, if you seeing the pain that comes from when you have to pretend it's not there, cover it up, and it's something that's constant and consistent. That's horrible. Like, you don't want to have to go through that. So, like, that's the first part of being able to, whether it's one by one, whether it's all together as a family, and say, look, we got to accept this, and we got to realize this and understand it. And it's not one person. The person is not the problem. And in this case, for you, even understanding it's it's this intense pain that and what your body goes through with your period, that this is incredibly difficult. And so it's not you. It's not a you thing. It's not, wow, you're just broken, so good luck. You can't, like, that's the shame talking, right?
Yeah.
And so the more, and even, like, it's helped for us to have, kind of funny conversations like that. And I can be as empathetic as I want. I will never understand it as much as I probably should. And I can accept that too. Like, it's
so
just
the
a
first
place.
step is
it's a place to start. Yeah.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Talking about it, and then what can you do as a family?
And part of that, it starts there with that family. If it's there are families that just aren't understanding, so it can move into close friends and things like that. But it's got to be that combination. It's the combination of people asking for help and support and people accepting support and help. And so you may have the most supportive family and friends, but if wherever kind of the challenge is, if
you don't
if
ask.
if you're not asking, if you're not accepting help, like,
so
that's another piece.
So the first step, we're really talking about shame and acceptance and saying, hey, this is hard and I need help. And that makes me emotional just because
it's always fun to see what these turn into. They don't always start with much.
I don't want to be that person that needs help. I want to be the helper.
But and again, and this isn't about you. I mean, I go back to when I was more as a kid. There's a lot of things about ADHD and even that I didn't want to sit with that, and it's not the same thing. You have comments like crazy. What are you saying?
No. We don't let people have comments.
Not the same thing, which is fine. Keep them to yourself. But it's that same piece, right, where it's understanding that there's an acceptance part to it, knowing, hey, look, this is something that I deal with. This is a struggle. It's not me, but knowing that, like, I'm gonna need to accept some help, and I'm gonna need to be able to talk to friends or family and
well, and if you don't get it from family, find someone you can get it for and find help. Healthy support.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll say, because it's getting kind of long,
is
the good thing about it is when you get help. I'll never forget. I'll share this story and wrap it up. But Dan and I, so he knew I had endometriosis because he was around when I was diagnosed, and we got engaged and we were taking engagement pictures, and it was supposed to be this beautiful happy day. And the endometriosis stuff happened, and it was the most embarrassing, humiliating, one of the moments of my life. And I'll never forget, you just helped take care of things, and it wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't embarrassing, and there was no shame, and there was no judgment, and there was no any of that. And so I think when somebody's coming to you, especially I'm a big advocate for mental health because that's in my family, is mental health, physical health, is somebody saying, hey, I'm struggling and I need help. I think the best thing that we can do is try and have empathy and be kind and listen and understand, and then help them get appropriate help. If it's a physical pain, going to a doctor. If it's a mental pain, finding therapy and finding ways to cope.
Yeah, it's a different week, and we'll go into it further. But it just that's I mean, you're right. That's huge. Understanding and remembering that a lot of this, and this is the stuff we're talking about that isn't like, oh, one time it's tough. This is the stuff that, I mean, it might get better and worse at different times, but
it might be there.
To some level, it's just there and around. It's not the person. It's a particular pain, challenge, struggle that really sits with things.
And on a funny note, don't Google how to help your spouse with ADHD and leave it on the
some
computer.
Interesting stuff. It's a different. We'll put that on a different week, but as it is, I mean, that's the challenge, right? Challenge of the week. I mean, like, make sure that it's something that you know what it is. What is it? What's the stuff in your family, with your friends, with the like?
Talk
what are
about
those
it.
challenges that you need to accept and need to be able to talk through together? We've really, I mean, for what it is, yep, you get 16 minutes of joy with the Jensens, right?
That's what we should call it.
Yeah.
We need to end this.
So we're done. But it's really been helpful for us just to even sit and talk things through. And so welcome to our therapy, even though it's not therapy. Thank you.
You're so funny.